How's it? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bearded Gooner Show. Glad to be back on the air with you guys after a bit of a hiatus here, not necessarily due to the virus, just some things going on with me getting reset up. So joining me today out of Oklahoma, I've got Tony. He's up in the top right corner. Down in the bottom left, Stan. He's all the way out on the West Coast in beautiful, I'm sure, sunny Vancouver. The weather's usually pretty beautiful out there. And first time joining me here, Dan the Man, also Stan the Man, but Dan the Man from Essex over in the motherland. So how are you, boys?
Yeah, good. Cheers, man. All good. All good. Can't complain.
Good. Glad to hear it. So we're going to keep it right around an hour today, folks. Spend about a half hour, talk about the City game coming up tomorrow night. Just one more sleep, boys, one more wake up, and we're back into it, and then we'll wrap things up with a quick preview of the Brighton match on the weekend. So, Dan, let's start with you. Give me just your take. You may have your ear to the ground a little bit better being over there than what we have over here. But what are you hearing on the Arsenal preparation, fitness, things like that?
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, it's all rumors at the moment, but it looks to me as if the squad is as fit can be. Obviously, Callum Chambers is looking like the only long-term injury, and there is kind of a half chance that he could play a part towards the end if it does go towards the end of July and August. So we're probably in a position which we haven't been in as an Arsenal fan for very many a year now, that we've got a whole squad of 25 plus players to choose from. And I think what's great is the fact that we can actually have these 5 substitutes now, which are going to be rotated and I believe should be used in most fixtures, just for the pure fact that we're going to be playing pretty much like the old Champions League situation, like a Tuesday and a Saturday for most of the time going through now. So for me, it's going to be an interesting situation for when the games do start and to how Arteta is looking to rotate his squad. I do kind of feel that we'll be picking up where we left off, and I think that the team news will be quite similar to what it was against the West Ham game back on the 7th of March, which seems like forever ago now. And I kind of expect and suspect that it will be a similar kind of senior players for that. I want to see some of the youngsters. The good news about the 5 substitutes is I think we will see that. Whether he starts with youngsters or brings 5 youngsters on, I think will be a good thing for Arsenal. I think what we will see is an interesting situation which we have in the couple of friendlies over at Brentford and Charlton, where Mesut Ozil has come off, and how we then change our formation completely to a kind of Pep Guardiola-styled Man City Arsenal team with a kind of 3 hard-working midfielders. And it's been interesting to see Maitland-Niles be a part of that. I feel that it was looking as if his future was pretty bleak, to be honest with you, but obviously something's happened, and Arteta has seen something which has allowed him to be back into part of this setup. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do with some of the youngsters in midfield, with Willock and Guendouzi. They're the kind of hard-working midfield 3 that I'd rather see than the Granit Xhaka and Mesut Ozils of this world. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where he goes with some of these players and how he molds some of these youngsters in going forward.
Yeah. All great points, all fantastic points. Tony, you want to jump in? Piggyback off of what Dan said. What do you think on preparation of the squad right now and fitness? What are you looking for?
Yeah, everybody's looking fit. Hopefully they don't get any muscle injuries from not being used to running up and down the pitch, but everybody looks fit. It's nice seeing Chambers running up and down the field. Hopefully he'll be able to get back before the season ends. It'd be nice to see him.
Yeah, like Dan said with Callum Chambers, again, it's a knee, and unfortunately we've had 3 defenders, suffer that same injury now, so it kind of sucks. It is a long-term injury, and as I've said on multiple channels, multiple shows before, it's a tough injury, not only physically to come back from, but the mental side of it as well. Stan, give me your take.
I also read just yesterday that there may be a question mark over Lucas Torreira's fitness. I didn't actually see what the problem was or if it's long or short term. But what I'm actually looking forward to seeing tomorrow is fullbacks. I'm actually looking forward to us putting out fullbacks that actually know the position and play the position. In a couple of warm-up games, I thought it was quite telling that Tierney and Hector Bellerin featured in both of those games. Following on from what Dan said as well, it's interesting that Ainsley Maitland-Niles does seem to have been sort of welcomed back into the fold. And it's going to be interesting for me to see where he's actually going to be deployed, because I've never really seen too many games of Ainsley playing in the midfield. Most of the games that I've seen have been when he was covering at right back. And to be fair, I wasn't very impressed with him playing in that position. I'm probably in a small minority. I know a lot of people really enjoyed him at right back. But I'm also looking forward to the presentation of what we're going to get tomorrow, because as well as looking forward to seeing Arsenal play, I'm also intrigued of seeing how it's going to be, how football is now going to be presented to us, the viewer, if they're going to go with the piped in sound effects. And, I've seen in some leagues as well, they had an image at the end of the pitch where they had a huge kind of video screen and they were going live to people's homes. So I don't know what they're going to try with the presentation. It's a little bit like when you're driving down the motorway. You're hearing along, and on the other lane, you see there's a car on fire and police sirens. You can't help but slow down a little bit and take a look. And I was a little bit like that when the German game resumed in the Bundesliga. But as for fitness, I mean, I have no idea what we're going into. The players probably have only been trying to prepare as hard as they can, but this is an unknown quantity. It's going to be so strange seeing a competitive game without any crowd. And it's going to be interesting to see how our players get back into their rhythm after being off for so long.
Yeah, on the and to piggyback off that a little bit, and I said this the other day, I think the intensity, I think, will ratchet up as the match progresses, because at the very beginning, I think it goes, the home players, obviously they're excited, they're coming out, their home fans are raucous. And the away players are kind of like, hey, let's go out there and shut these people up. So neither side is really going to get that atmosphere, coming out of the tunnel. It's going to be a very strange feeling, I think, for the players. And therefore, I think, the crowd does play a role in creating that intensity, especially at the beginning of a match. So I think the intensity at the beginning is going to be lacking, if you will. But I think as the match goes and the match develops itself, those things I think tend to drift away for professional athletes. They can just kind of put on blinders, if that makes sense, and just, what's right in front of them. The ambient crowd noise just sort of fades away, and they're focused more on what their teammates are saying, communication, things like that. So I think they'll warm up to things as the match progresses. I saw a thing earlier today. I think it came across on a Bleacher Report. Pep Guardiola had said that Arteta knows all of their secrets. So coaching wise, Dan, I'll come back to you. Coaching wise, what do you think? Can you overthink something like this, being a coach facing your former team? Or is it simply, hey, I know what they're going to try to do and we're going to counter it?
I think we're probably in the best position to come up against this Man City side. We've got the best manager available to us. He knows everything about Pep Guardiola, but also more importantly, the Man City players. And I think what's going to be interesting for me, as much as we can go into Arteta, and I will in a second, Pep Guardiola, if I concentrate on him 1 second, is not going to want to lose this game. Let's not forget that. He is not going to want to come up against Mikel Arteta and lose this game. But we do know how Guardiola is going to play. We know how he's going to set up, because he does that consistently against whatever opposition that comes close to him. Why is that good for us? Because Arteta understands it totally, man for man, player for player. I think it's interesting what Stan says about our fullbacks, because it looks to me as if Bellerin and Tierney are the first choice. Otherwise, why would they both have been playing? I think it's going to be quite interesting though, because they have fullbacks that bomb forward, and that is all that ours can do. I don't have much confidence in Bellerin and Tierney from a defensive point of view, but going forward, they have the pace and the power to give us some kind of threat down the wings. I think when it comes to Arteta and Pep Guardiola's style, I think Arteta may shock and surprise by trying to do a couple of things quite differently to try and kind of repel against what our Guardiola knows and his style. I think Guardiola kind of is in the worst position, because I don't think he knows what Arteta is going to do. I think he suspects Arteta to play the kind of style that he has seen over the last few months, the short time that he's been an Arsenal manager. And I don't know if Arteta is going to do that. I think he could surprise. I'm not so sure. I think what will be interesting, and I've touched on it already, is this 5 subs thing, because I think that is where it can completely change football. I think 5 subs is all about tactician, and it's all about who is the best and masterclass at tactics. Because with 5 subs at, say, 60 minutes, you completely change half your team if you want to. So I think that's going to come into play 100%. I think I know what team that Arteta is probably going to go with. I think Leno's a definite starter in goal. I've touched on Bellerin and Tierney at fullbacks. I just got the feeling that Mari's going to miss out and he's going to go with Mustafi and Luiz, unfortunately. This isn't the team that I picked. This is my prediction. I think he's going to go with the 3 in midfield that he believes balances best. And I don't think that includes Lucas Torreira and Matteo Guendouzi or Joe Willock. I think that's going to be Xhaka, Ozil and Ceballos. And I think he's going to go with Pepe on the right, Aubameyang, who he seems to like, on the left, and Lacazette up front. Now, that's not the team I would go for. I would have the Saka and Martinellis of this world in there and the Guendouzis, just because I believe they're our future. I've seen enough of the Granit Xhakas and Mustafis, man. I've seen them for 5 years. I've seen what they can do. I'm done with this team when it's like that. I'm done. I want to see them in 2021 gone so that we can progress these youngsters and we can start to see it. But for now, he's got to stick to the squad of 25 that he's got. So I totally see why he's going to be using all of the squad, but rotation-wise. I think what's interesting, just lastly, on the Arteta and Pep Guardiola thing, is the actual relationship that they may have is kind of strange for Arteta coming back to that stadium with nobody being there. I spoke to a Man City fan last night and he said that he thought that it would be a fantastic kind of reception that Arteta would have got. And it's going to be quite strange for Arteta. I'm sure these circumstances are not what either manager want, but it will be very interesting to see. And just lastly, I believe we've got quite a weak mentality at the moment. I believe some of our senior players are quite weak mentally. They're the same players that messed up in Baku and lost to Olympiacos. But I think the majority of that was going away from home, was quite a daunting stadium for their actual kind of away fans, and them not being there could work in our favour as an advantage moving forward. So we'll have to see what happens. It's a complete and utter football lottery as far as I'm concerned. Form's gone out the window. Let's see what happens tomorrow night.
Yeah, I said that the other day too. Form is you can't look back really at the past for form. It's just we've essentially had an entire offseason here, boys. I mean, it's been 3 months, and I said the other night on Arsenal Fan Circle that you figure the season ends under normal circumstances mid-May, and we fire back up right around the after the first week of August 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere in that area is the first match of the following season. So you're talking 3 months, and we've here again we've had a full 3 months off, so form goes out the window, and you have no idea, Dan, you're spot on. You just have no idea what you're going to get with an empty stadium, with no atmosphere, how that's going to affect the players. So to your point on the weak mentality that this squad has had for easily the better part of the last 2 or 3 years now, going away from home, it could work to our benefit, I think, to not have, a hostile crowd against you. So, Stan, what do you think?
I have to agree with everything that Dan just said about what he feels the starting lineup is going to be. And again, it would not be the starting lineup that I would want to go to for all of the reasons that Dan stated. You've got some prospects there that I think really need to start get some game time. And perhaps his last 10 games is where we can have a good look at some of these youngsters and really make a decision on whether some of these youngsters are good enough to continue with an Arsenal career, or whether we should be seriously thinking about moving them on and upgrading them. The only thing that I would disagree with is Kieran Tierney. I'm a big Kieran Tierney fan. It's probably because I've got Scottish heritage, and I always want a Scot and a Jamaican playing for Arsenal. So I'm halfway there, right? But I mean,
you say a Scot and a Jamaican?
Yeah, I've got a lot going on in my background.
Or even a German geneticist couldn't think that one up.
So I've got my Scottish wish. I just want us to sign Leon Bailey now. We left the Jamaican part. But at the pub that I watch all of the games here in Vancouver, we share with the Celtic supporters club as well. and we've played a lot of games at the same time. And I've had them on in the screens, and I know quite a bit about Kieran and Tierney. And a lot of the old boys that drink up there as well, the proper old boys that have been supporting Celtic a long time, they really rate Kearney. And a lot of them actually feel that he's better than Robertson, and that, once he gets his fitness in check, that he could probably be the Scottish left back. They regard him that highly. It's going to be, regarding the tactics wise, if anyone can spot if if Pep Guardiola is doing a secret move, you'd like to think that it's Arteta. You'd like to think that he's got it all stored up there, and if he hasn't got it stored up there, he's at least used the Xerox machine at City's ground before he left and took off the blueprint of Pep's playbook with him. So it's going to be very interesting tomorrow. But the point that Dan touched on about a lot of our players, and I'd agree with him, have had some sort of, what's the right term for it, mental fragility, shall we say? If after almost a 3-month layoff that these players come back and they're still showing those signs, and they haven't been able to get together as a team and iron those kind of that kind of an attitude out of the team, then they just need to be turned over and moved on. And we can't really continue to carry these players who won't step up.
Yeah, Tony, I know the first name on your team sheet tomorrow. I know who it's going to be. And Dan mentioned him, so I think you guys are going to be on the same page there. Granit Xhaka.
Yeah, I definitely want to be playing him. He'd be sitting on the bench. I'd give Guendouzi or Willock or even Niles a chance to play out there with Ceballos. I'd like to see Torreira back there, the lone central defensive mid, but pretty sure we'll get the same 4-2-3-1 formation with Ozil and Xhaka out there.
Yeah, Tony, you and I have been in agreement for a while now on the I don't know how you'd want to describe it, a 4-1-3-2, a 4-4-2, but playing with a diamond in the middle as Lucas Torreira as the base of that diamond and the lone defensive midfielder. I just don't feel like Torreira is really – I don't want to say he hasn't gotten a fair shake. I think he wore down towards the end of his first season here, which was last season. Boy, that feels weird to say that it's still last season. But I feel like that's his best role, and I'm not going to get too much into the formation and the things like that I've kind of talked about with on other shows. I could do that for a half hour, but I think Arteta is going to stick with the 4-2-3-1. I think you might. I don't know. Stan, you said you heard something about Torreira not being fit, so that would change things a little bit. I definitely think Xhaka is going to be in there. And look, guys, this is 3 managers in a row now that see something there that we just as supporters we just don't see. I'm racking my brain over it, trying to figure out what it is. The only thing I can come up with is maybe the leadership. But obviously, given the incident, if you will, against Palace. Back in what was that now, October, November. The leadership thing, he loses me on the leadership with that. But Jock is going to be in there. Tierney and Bellerin. Stan, I'm with you on Kieran Tierney. I like this kid a lot. I think, if he can just stay fully healthy and string a good stretch of matches together. And when I say good, I mean many, not good necessarily to inform, obviously, about that as well. But I do have very high hopes for Kieran Tierney. Real big on this kid. I think he has future Arsenal captain written all over him. It's just that he just brings a mentality that I'm absolutely in love with. And he plays for the Arsenal, so I want nothing but the best for him. If he plays well, then that should mean good things for the club as well. Dan, back to the lineup. I gotta tell you, I think Saka might get a shout in there. I think he may move Aubameyang up top, drop Lacazette to the bench, and move Saka over to the left, and then have Lacazette, to be able to bring in off the bench as one of those 5 substitutes. But you're absolutely right. The 5 substitutes thing, man, that's a game changer. You can you change out your team, and you can completely change your game plan and your tactics as well. And like you said, that really is going to separate the tacticians from the not so much. based on how they bring in and utilize their substitutes, in terms of not only personnel, but the tactics, the style, formation. So many different things you can do now with 5 different substitutes. So, what do we think on the day you had started to on Pep Guardiola? What do we think we're going to get out of City?
Well, I think you're going to get a team that we've all seen for the last few seasons, which is going to be fantastic going forward. They've got the best player in the league, in my opinion, in Kevin De Bruyne, and I think that if they can get him on the ball, then we're in trouble at any moment. One thing I don't like about Man City is they have skillful players down the wing that can cut inside, and one of the best strikers in the world in Sergio Aguero. And that worries me when we have defenders that can't defend and that can't organise themselves. So I think we're going to see some goals, that's for sure. I think City are going to be on the receiving end of those goals as well, I hope. But I do see that they are going to score against us. There is a goal scoring side. Pep Guardiola is a master at getting a system working and playing that system against any team, no matter what happens. And I think it's going to be very hard for us to break that down. I think the only kind of thing that I will say is that their centre-halves are probably their weakest part of their side. And the good news for them and the bad news for us is Laporte is back fit.
Yeah.
The only thing is, it's one of his first games back. How fit are they going to be? How does he need a run of 3 or 4 games? Perhaps so. But if he's kept himself well and healthy and fit, then he is going to improve their back line 100%. I don't think it matters whether it's Otamendi or Stones. And the other good thing for them is Fernandinho is still, in my opinion, their best holding midfielder, and he's going to be pushed forward now. So Laporte coming back in is going to allow him to play in his preferred position of defensive midfield. So they're going to be a strong side. They're like us. They've got everybody fit. It really depends. It doesn't really matter to me whether it's Leroy Sané or Sterling on the left or Bernardo Silva or Mahrez on the right. It's going to be a real hard opposition, and they've got 5 subs as well, and they've got a much better squad than us. So it might be good news for us to have some fresh legs, but they're going to have fresh legs with a hell of a lot more talent than we've got. And I think that the good thing about if we do start with the team that I predicted is that we have got the Martinellis, the Sakas, the Nketiahs, the Nelsons, the Willocks that can all come on and have all got young, vibrant, hard-working, off-the-ball kind of mentality. So let's hope that can be some kind of secret weapon that Pep Guardiola isn't going to kind of expect. We'll come to predictions in a minute, I'm sure. I haven't predicted us to win this game. I haven't. But I just do not want to see us lose 4 or 5-0. I just want to see a performance from these players. And it goes back to this mentality thing again. I want to see them trying. I want to see every single player working their socks off. And if we lose 3-2, 3-1, even 4-1, but we have tried and I've seen a performance there, I'll be happy. Honestly, I will. For me, it's not about results. I think the seasons I've kind of tapped out a bit because of everything that's happened. I've had a real poor year with Arsenal watching them. They've been sore and hard to watch. And for me, I'm looking forward to next season already so we can clear some of this lot out, because for me, there is a lot of dead wood in this side now that was still there from when Arsene Wenger and Gazidis was there. And I want to see those players go. I've seen what Granit Xhaka can do. I've seen how the lack of athleticism he has in midfield. I've tapped out of that. I don't want to see him. He's not a future for me. I've seen Mesut Ozil stroll around the pitch and do the bare minimum. I've seen enough of him. I've seen what the likes of, say, Socrates, David Luiz, Mustafi. I'm not interested in how they can try and defend. They're not coachable defenders, in my opinion. So let's concentrate on who's going to be there in the next 5 years, hopefully, and let's try and mould them through into a style that suits Arteta. And if Arteta can get the right backing and the right board to bring the right players in, that's going to suit his philosophy, whether they cost £5 million or whether they cost £50 million, as long as they suit Arteta's style, I will welcome them to the club and give him a chance. And that's why I'm not going to get on the backs of Willocks and Nketiahs and even Pablo Mari's that haven't really been given a chance. Maybe Nicola Pepe to one stage, because I feel that he's still got another season to try and sort of settle in and prove his kind of critics wrong. That's why I'm not getting on the backs of those guys. I'm getting on the backs of these senior players that have been there and done it and have apparently won all this stuff for their World Cup teams. They're the ones I've got a problem with. I'm done with them. Move them out, ship them out. Kolasinac, Ozil, Xhaka, Mustafi, Luiz, Socrates, gone. See you later. You've had your chance for 4 or 5 years. You've not done it. Let's get these youngsters in and see what we can do.
I don't think you're going to get an argument out of this lot at all, Dan. I can tell you right now, you're talking about getting Jock out of here, and Tony's like, yes, please. I mean, if Tony could, he would drive, literally drive. He would fit a vehicle that could get across the ocean, and then drive on land, and he would drive Jock to wherever he needed to go to get rid of him.
Some kind of hovercraft device.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to get through the North Sea though, so you better outfit it real well. You're gonna need it. But yeah, Dan, spot on. Stan, you want to jump on the back of that?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, I mean, these usual suspects that Dan has named, right, and that's what they are. The senior players that he's mentioned. The worst thing is that for me, they just set a bad example for the young ones that are coming through. And we've got a young defender coming in next season, William Saliba, right, a young prospect. And you think of the three senior defenders that we've got. We've got Socrates, Mustafi, and we've got David Luiz. Let's say we put in a cheeky bid, and we did. Let's say my wish came true, and we also brought in Upamecano. There's no way that we could just put Saliba and Upamecano out from day one. We would have to have one of these senior defenders. We would have to keep one to kind of guide them through. But you look at those three that I've named. I mean, would you really want a young prospect learning off of any of those three? I wouldn't. And I would probably say that if I had to pick one, it would probably be David Luiz. But that's like, you're holding a gun to my head for me to pick him. I don't want these older players, the senior players mentoring our young players, because I just think that they've got bad habits. But going back to the game, I mean, on paper, yeah, you put the two squads, the two teams down on paper, you've got to give it to City. But sometimes, the play doesn't always go to the script. And there's a reason, why Man City are not ahead in the league and Liverpool are. They have had some slip-ups. And as Dan said, I don't mind us taking a loss tomorrow. My concern is the manner of the loss. If we get humped and we've got what he just said, we've got Ozil just strolling around. We've got Xhaka kicking the ball into Rose Z. We've got Mustafi going in for mad sliding tackles in our own penalty area and giving away penalties. Then, yeah, the next podcast I'm going to be on, it will be slightly X-rated, more than likely, right? But as long as I see passion, it's the manner of the loss. If we lose and everybody is working as hard as they can, then sometimes you just got to hold your hand up and say, well, that's just the best that we've got. And hopefully, we'll be able to turn the squad over and upgrade. But at least what we've got are doing the best that they can to try and keep things a little bit respectable.
Yeah, Tony, I think overall, all of us really, and to touch on what Dan said and what Stan echoed, you just want to see fight. I just want to see fight. I want to see, okay, if you go down a goal, I want to see you fight to get the next one. If you go up a goal, I want to see you fight to double the lead. But overall, I want to see fight. I can live with a 3-2, 3-1, 4-1, like you said, Dan. I can live with the loss. I'm not expecting a win. I don't know what to expect tomorrow, to be honest with you. This is completely uncharted territory, not only for us as supporters, but for the players, the coaches, the entire lot. This is completely unprecedented in any of our lives. We've never dealt with this before, so I don't think any of us really know what to expect other than to see two teams kind of go out there, and you might see sandlot football for all we know. I don't really know of a better way to put that. It just might be like, 22 guys getting out there, with their friends and just playing a game of pickup. But at the end of the day, it's all about fight, Tony. I want to see fight. I want to see overall good decision making. I'll let you jump in there, and then we'll get into predictions.
That's kind of been my only gripe of Arteta so far. We've never seen really a full 90 minutes of fight. We go out there for one half and are completely flat, or go out there and we're brilliant for 30 minutes, then go flat. Just be nice to see 90 minutes of us going out there and fighting, and really don't care about results if we're out there fighting, busting their ass out there.
90 minutes of forgive the pun, but all guns blazing, and not 90 minutes and give it all you got. Don't leave anything. What are you saving it for? You got 10 games left. What are you saving it for? Get out there and give it your all. So, Tony, what do you got? Prediction?
I think we'll win 2-1.
I like the positivity, Dan.
Unfortunately, I don't share that optimism, but I love it, Tony. The one thing the one thing Arteta has done, and I'll give him credit for in the first few months in charge, is he's made us harder to beat. He has made us much harder to beat. We haven't gone down to a 5 or 6-0 thrashing, so that's got to be a good sign for me. I don't believe it will be a drumming. I do predict a loss. I think Man City will have too much for us, but I think we're going to score. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 narrow win to Manchester City.
Stan?
Just before I give my prediction, there was one other point I wanted that I forgot to make regarding possible lineups, and that is, we haven't managed to get Saka yet to commit to the club, and I'm thinking that if the club are really behind the scenes trying to encourage this guy to commit his future to Arsenal, then surely he's going to have to start getting into the starting lineup, playing in his favoured position to make him feel comfortable and to make him see that there is a future for him at Arsenal. But my prediction, I'm going to go with a draw. I've got a feeling that we may be able to nick a draw, or we may get one of those games where we're doing really well, but at the end, we just can't hold out, and they nick it to a draw. So I'm going to say a 2-2 draw.
Well, I'm going the fireworks angle, boys. I think we're going to see some goals. I think we're going to see two teams that are attack minded because they simply have to be. They're not. We obviously are not very good defensively. We're not very structured. One point I wanted to make, Dan, you brought up, you said something very well, and I wanted to touch on the point real quick. You said these are not coachable players at the back, the Socrates, the David Luiz, the Mustafi, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I've been saying this easily the entire season. They are what they are at this point. You're not going to change. I don't think Mikel Arteta will change the players that they are. The only thing he can do is hopefully try to put them in positions where the boneheaded decisions that they make won't necessarily come back to bite us in the rear end. But I couldn't agree with you more. I just don't think they're coachable players. And that comes with their age and their experience. I think as a player, you get to a point where you are who you are. You've been coached up and you've become what you are. And after that, it's kind of the, teaching the old dog new tricks, so to speak. You want to jump in there, I can see. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm totally with you 100%. The only thing I will say is Arteta's done exactly that, what you said, Tanner, and that is literally he's putting them in positions where perhaps they won't be able to be as much of a liability as they have been in the previous seasons. And David Luiz, for me, has been a poor signing. Yeah, he's experienced. He should be the leader out there. He's won everything there is pretty much in football, but he has got that liability, that mistake in him most weeks. Yeah, it's not even like for Chelsea somehow it was 3 times a season. For Arsenal, it's 3 times a game. It's just so frustrating that David Luiz has been brought to this club and has cost the 24 million in total that we've been rumoured that he's been made. And we've spent 5 million on a right back that we're not even going to sign on a free apparently now that hasn't kicked a ball. So apparently our recruitment has changed and it's so much better now. Raul and VIII are here. Clearly not. We've got Mustafi and Socrates who are now in their late. Socrates is 32, Mustafi's 28, and for me, he is still playing. And what frustrates me the most about it is not just the kind of players we have now, and I don't blame Arteta for this one bit. If Jurgen Klopp, right, in this Liverpool side, still had Balotelli, Joe Allen, Markovic, Mamadou Sakho in this squad, Liverpool fans would be saying the same as us. Why are they here? So that is why Arsenal fans are asking the questions. And you get some fans that are happy with mediocrity. They're happy with being a top 6 side. They're happy with being top 4. As long as you finish above Tottenham, it's a perfect season. Bullshit. I'm done with that. I want to win stuff. I don't want to finish ahead of Tottenham. I don't care what Tottenham do. They can come 17th or 3rd for all I care, as long as we are concentrating on what we're doing to try and put in a challenge for the title. And at the moment, I don't see that. Now, people say, oh, but these players were there before Arteta. Yeah, they were. They were Arsene Wenger players, which is why they need to go. And the reason they need to go isn't just because they were coached by Arsene Wenger. It's because they learned off of role models that were very extremely poor as well. that were happy to go to Old Trafford and lose 8-2, that were happy to be 4-0 up against Newcastle at St James's Park and draw 4-4, or to go to St Mary's on Boxing Day and lose 4-0. These are the people that were coaching Granit Xhaka, Mustafi, even Bellerin sometimes, Ozil. These people were looking up to them when they come to Arsenal saying, I'm happy to sit with the Gervinhos and the Andre Santos and the Denilsons of this world. So what needs to happen now is this culture needs to change, and we need to forget what has happened over the last 10 years. People are laughing at Liverpool for losing a game, right? Who are we to be laughing at Liverpool? We're 42 points behind them. We haven't done anything in the last 13 years. They've got to 4 Champions League finals, 2 of which they've won, and they've been in turmoil more than us. So we need to wake up as a fan base and try and unite together to see what we want. And at the moment, we need change. And for me, with Arteta coming in, I believe we have the right man. What we need now is the backing. And I don't have the faith that this board is going to give him the backing that Jurgen Klopp's been given at Liverpool.
Yeah, I've touched on that many times myself, and I've said, is it and you said earlier, I don't care if a player costs £5 million or £50 million. It's the right player for Mikel Arteta. So he has to be in the discussions of the players that come in. And this is kind of one of the things that I've never really understood about European football is you have your director of football, and then you have your manager. And who is the guy? And it's unfortunate that you ask the question, who is the guy who is pulling the strings or making the decisions? Well, it should be, if you hire a chef to cook, shouldn't he be allowed to pick the ingredients? That's just my take on it. Now you have to have somebody there to say, okay, well, here's a list of players, and you got to work together to pull this off. And that's where I think a guy like, I'll be honest, and I may go off on a little bit of a rant here, but with Sanllehi, I'm not a fan. I think he's way too my way or the highway. You're the coach. I'm going to give you the players, and you go coach them up. And there's too much. You're giving me shit, and you want me to shine a turd. Well, that's fine. I'll polish it up for you, but it's still going to be a turd at the end of the day. It's still going to stink, And I think that's what right now. I think that's what we're getting. I think we're being given turds, and now Mikel Arteta is just the next guy in line to say, go turn that turd into a diamond, and he's not going to. It's just not going to happen if that's the mentality. And Dan,
that's why Arteta needs a couple of seasons and 4 transfer windows for me. I'm not going to be judging him now. These players aren't his. These players have proven to us that they are going to let you down. They've proven that to us. Yeah, they have proven that. And you know what frustrates me even more is the recruitment has been so poor over the last 10 years when we could have had N'Golo Kante, but we chose Xhaka, and we could have had Van Dijk, and we chose Mustafi, right? That's how poor our recruitment's been. That's not down to Arteta. What frustrates me is that Raul Sanllehi's signings for me have not actually been much better. I'm a fan of Martinelli and Guendouzi, and I'm a fan of the Tierney deal. I think that's a good signing. When I look at some of the others, I think Cedric Suarez, Lichtsteiner, Denis Suarez, David Luiz. Come on, stop now. The Dani Ceballos deal hasn't really worked out. I mean, it had potential, hasn't really worked out. The Pepe deal, 72 million. I'll give him time, but hasn't really worked out. So if we're looking at Leno at the moment and perhaps Martinelli and Guendouzi as the only 3 players in the kind of 7 or 8 that we're dealing with, why is Raul and Hosfami getting all this absolute glory? Because I can't see it personally.
Yeah. See, they told us that we were going to outsmart the market. And for me, the biggest mistake the club made was getting rid of Sven Mislintat, because that way of doing business was what I was led to believe was how we were going to move forward. We were going to go out there. He was going to find some rough diamonds. We were going to polish them. We were going to get some years out of them. And then we're going to move them on for a bit of cash and keep reinvesting that cash. Now we've got Raul Sanllehi, who, for me, he's like one of them dodgy timeshare salesmen. And I used to work selling timeshares, so I know what I'm talking about, right? The guy, and I'm really worried that they're going to do the same thing to Mikel Arteta as what they started doing to Unai Emery. Unai Emery sat down with Wilfried Zaha. He spoke to Wilfried Zaha. He went back to the board. He said, this is the person that I want. These are the reasons why. Now, whether as a fan you agree with him choosing Zaha, the board turned around and said, okay, we've listened to everything that you've had to say. Here's Nicolas Pepe. This is what you've got to work with. And this was at a time, remember, when Raul Sanllehi was pushing to give Unai an extended contract. So they didn't do it because they thought that they were getting rid of him and they didn't want him to make that decision. They were basically giving him tools to work with. And all of this, this Raul Sinieri, the way that he seemed to be bringing in players is he seems to go in his little black book. He'll speak to his super agents. He'll ask them which one of their players are they thinking of moving on, and then we'll take that player and somehow try to shoehorn that player into our team, rather than going out and finding players that have the attributes and the traits that the manager wants to take us forward. And I really think that I've said it for the past few windows, but this window, I think, is going to be a very important and telling window. And I know the kind of excuses that they're going to come out with. I mean, they've had all of this time to get Saka to sit down and to give him their vision of the club moving forward and to get him to sign. And now that football's back, if you mention to anybody in the press interviews about Saka, they're going to wheel out the old cliches. Well, football's back now, so we just want to continue and concentrate with the rest of the season. We'll talk about it in the next 10 weeks when the season's over. Bullshit. They've had 3 months and they still haven't managed to get this young man to commit his future to Arsenal. And if they're unable to do it, for me, heads need to roll. If they can't get him to re-sign, then that's a major fuck up in my book, and someone's got to pay for that.
And the people that probably would need to pay for it, Stan, probably won't, because it would come, in my opinion, from ownership. Ownership has to show the ambition, and I don't mean ambition as in open up the coffers and free up £250 million to go out and just blow up the transfer market. I don't mean that. If it takes $70 million to make this team what it needs to be and get the players in that Arteta wants, then it's $70 million. If it's $200 million, it's $200 million. If it's $200 million and you don't get it done in one transfer window, I can understand that. I'm not a guy who just thinks that I'm not a fan. I'm not a supporter like a Chelsea supporter. It just throw money at it. I've never been a guy to fix a problem by just throwing all the money in the world at whatever the problem might be. Fix the problem. And whatever that costs, that's what it costs. It doesn't have to cost the arm and the leg, But you're absolutely right with if Saka, and that's a great example. If he doesn't commit to the club, whose fault is it that you have to lay the blame at someone's feet?
And this is the problem with these players now. We're still in the position when we can't tie players down. And the reason is because they're looking at where the club's going and their actual ambition of the club. If it doesn't match the player and it doesn't match what I believe the fans should want, then I don't blame the player for leaving. People hate Nasri. They hate Van Persie. They hate Sanchez. They hate Fabregas. Yeah. Why do we hate these players? Right. Because they left the club because they thought, do I want to play? Let's take Ashley Cole, for example, back in 2006, right? Let's take Ashley Cole. He's at Arsenal, right? They're in a good position. They've just got to the Champions League final, and 2 years ago they went unbeaten and won the league. He's looking at the ambition, saying, we're moving to the Emirates. Do I want to play with Philippe Senderos and Denilson, or do I want to play with John Terry and Frank Lampard? I think I'll choose Terry and Lampard and go to Chelsea. Then we look at Robin Van Persie. He goes and wins the league. We look at Nasri. He goes and wins the league. Fabregas. He goes to Barcelona, wins the Champions League, comes to Chelsea, wins the league. These players are winning stuff. So who are we to sit there and say, you don't want to be here, go? None of the fans actually sit there and take 1 second to say, why do these people keep wanting to leave our club? None of the fans want to do that. They just want to hate them. Why do we want to hate these players who have been brilliant for us for the last five years of their career, when all of a sudden it's like, let's have a chat about why it might be that they want to leave the club. Why is it? Because they have no ambition. These players around us are literally getting bought and bought and bought. And I'm seeing no replacement for Patrick Vieira and no replacement for Sol Campbell, who left the club 15 years ago.
Trying to paper over the cracks. Go ahead, Tom.
I just say you made a really good point there, Dan, especially with Ashley Cole, because you got to think that if you've got a young man that's come through the football club that he grew up supporting, he's grown up supporting this club. He hasn't been bought in from somewhere else and is moving on. It's got to be really difficult for that young man to then turn around and say, you know what? I want to leave the club that I've grown up supporting because I don't see I've got a future here, and that ambition doesn't quite measure up to mine. That must have been a hard decision to make from someone that supports the club, has grown up in that system, and it could be the same for Saka. Yeah. Because my biggest fear is that when all of this stuff happened with the pay cuts, which Arsenal now are one of the only few teams to have done it, the story was that when the negotiation, the brokerage was going on, that the players weren't allowed to have their representatives in the meetings with them. It was all done just between them and the club. And there was also stories that there were other players other than Mesut Ozil. They went along with it, but they kind of felt a little bit pressured and didn't really want to speak out. And to me, I would imagine that that could have been some of our younger players who aren't on some of the bigger wages as some of our bigger players. And you don't know that. My biggest fear is that you've got an agent sitting in Saka's ear going, you know what? I don't think this club has your best interest at heart. I mean, they wouldn't even let me look after your financial situation, which is what I'm paid to do by you, right? I don't think that you don't know what's being said, because at the end of the day, if that agent can engineer for a Saka, a lot of clubs will be queuing to take that talent away from us, and there'll be a payout. There'll be a payday.
Yeah. You take Aubameyang, for example, right, at the moment. We talk about Saka, but Aubameyang's the one that everyone's talking about at the moment. Now, for me, if it was actually between the two, I feel Aubameyang for now is more important, but I'd rather keep Saka because I think that kid's got a hell of a lot of potential. I really do, right? But I look at the situation with Aubameyang now and I think, right, if you really want this guy to stay, he looks behind him, right, Aubameyang, and he sees somebody doing the bare minimum for 350k a week, right? He's looking at his situation on 200 grand a week or whatever he's on near that, and he thinks, well, I want more than him because I, for the last 2 seasons, scored 21 goals a season for this club. This guy's got 2 assists in 2 years, so surely I should be matched at least what he's on. Then he looks at the behind him and thinks this squad needs freshening up. If we had to want Aubameyang to sign, if we went and signed Upamecano and we went and signed Thomas Partey, Aubameyang would look at that as ambition and say, that's more like it. I'll sign. That's what I want to see, with a group of youngsters around me, with a spine which we finally got of Aubameyang, Partey, Upamecano and Leno. You then put Saliba and all of the other youngsters around it. We finally got our spine, which we've needed since 2005. And then we can move forward again and compete. And Aubameyang does not see that. And if he looks at that, he doesn't want that and match that ambition. I wouldn't sign either. I'd go. So I'm totally with Aubameyang. He's left it with the board now. It is the board's fault if this doesn't happen.
You can't blame players who want to go and win. And that's it. You play to win, period. I know that, and I keep saying this is a job for these guys. You know, and there are players who are just out there and all they want is the money. They'll just chase the money. They don't care about winning. If a team that's fighting relegation year in and year out offers them £500,000 a week, they'll go and they'll take it because they don't care. But what I see by and large, most players want to win. And it's a team game. One player is not going to come in and completely, change a club's fortunes if the club's fortunes are that low. And right now, I hate to say, I think we're kind of one of those clubs. One player is not going to turn this club around and turn us into perennial Champions League contenders year in and year out. It's going to take 3 or 4 players, I think, to make that, to get us to that level. So, coming up on it here, boys. Listen. We could go on about this. I feel like for days. It is what it is right now, and we just have to hope that the ambition is matched and that the money is there, hopefully, and we get it done. So, you guys all gave your score predictions. I started to give mine, and then I jumped away from it. I'll come back to it. As I said before, I think we're going to see fireworks tomorrow. I'm going to go with the 4-2. Unfortunately, loss. I don't think we're going to pull it out. I do think Man City are the more talented side. Obviously, the more I'll say, when I say experienced side, just more time working with their head coach in Pep than what we have with Arteta. So I think City are going to get us 4-2. I will not be necessarily disappointed in that. Like I said, as long as I see fight, I do think City are the better squad right now. So it's kind of hard to be disappointed when you lose to who you perceive to be the better team. So if I may here, we'll move on. We also play again on Saturday. Quick turnaround here. They're going to get about 48 hours to rest, and then we're back at it again Saturday down on the South Coast at the Amex, Brighton and Hove Albion. I was at the game at the Emirates back in early December, and I got to say it was. I think that was Freddie's first game in charge, if I'm not mistaken. And unfortunately, it was a very lackluster effort. There was just no the things that we talk about wanting to see out of Arsenal, the fight, the intensity, the passion. The first game against Brighton this season at home, and that passion wasn't there, especially with a new head coach in the mix with Freddie Ljungberg. Although we know he was just the caretaker at the time. But I think we're going to get a better performance this time around. Tony, what do you think?
It's one we should be able to go out there and easily win. Hopefully, we throw in a couple of fresh players and go out there and get the 3 points.
Yeah, that's another thing too with the 5 substitute thing is we should be able to keep legs relatively fresh with these fixtures that are going to come thick and fast, Dan.
I'm glad that the fixtures are coming thick and fast. I mean, the football's been away for so long now, but also with not having so much time to rest by having a week in between games, it means that we may get to see more players from the squad being used. I mean, I really want to find out if Pablo Mari is somebody that we should be looking at making a permanent signing of. I want to know why we decided to bring in Suarez from Southampton. I want to see if Danny Ceballos really is the second coming, like most of our fan base believe he is because of that performance against Burnley. So I want to see the team get turned around. I want to see Willock in the midfield to see if he's up to the grade. I want to see Reece Nelson playing on the right hand side to see whether he's got what it takes to fight Pepe for a regular place. And I want to see Eddie Nketiah getting opportunities to see whether he can be somewhere that could fight maybe Lacazette for a place or be a really good backup striker who can come off the bench and score goals. So I'm really looking forward to this high turnover of games for all of those reasons.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Everything you just said, and the thought was in my head, so you're kind of in my head as well here. I think in some of these games, we go Brighton. I believe then we go to Southampton. I think we go to St. Mary's after Brighton, and that would be – here are 2 stretches of games really where I would say we should get a pretty good look at the kids. We're going to get a good look at Martinelli. I think we'd get a good look at Willock and Eddie and Saka for sure. I don't even know if Suarez is fit. He came in and I don't even remember what his ailment was. It might have been a shoulder or something. That's what sticks in my head, but I could be wrong. What's that, Tone?
So I'm pretty sure it's a shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, when we brought him in, we knew he wasn't going to play for 3 months, and it's like, why bring him in? What's the point in bringing him in for the last month and a half of the season? And I don't get it. But if he's healthy and he's fit, okay, let's see what he's got for sure. I do think that there need to be some names that go on the team sheet right off the bat automatically. And Kieran Tierney, and Stan, I think you'll back me up on that. Kieran Tierney's that guy. I think he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet. Aubameyang, Leno. These are guys that need to be playing match in, match out. Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the 2 hopes who want to see more of Martinelli and Saka. And as I said a few moments ago, I mean, if the club's trying to get Saka to put pen to paper, then surely he's going to get minutes and start games in his favoured position. And it's quite interesting because if we do move on Henrik Mkhitaryan, then there's a shout somewhere for the number 7 jersey. Yeah. And the 2 names that there's a couple of names that I would perhaps consider. I think Nicolas Pepe, I mean, that position is usually the number 7, but I think he likes 19. I think
he likes 19. He was 19 at
his international teams as well, right? Yeah. For his international side. So then I would say that there's 2 candidates there. You've got Martinelli. But I mean, Saka, if you're trying to make a statement to Saka and trying to show him that you believe that he has a big part to play in the future for Arsenal, offer him the number 7 shirt.
And think of who has come through this club to wear that number 7 jersey as well. And you're going to a degree carry on, I'll say, the legacy, if you will, or the the history of the number 7 shirt at this football club.
Yeah.
So. That's a great point. Yeah. If Mkhitaryan gets moved on, yeah, the number 7 jersey becomes available, and I think Saka would be a prime candidate to take it over. He went from being 87 to 77. So
exactly, we just dropped a 7, and there we are.
Just drop the 7 altogether, and just leave it at 1. So I think the lineup at Brighton on Saturday will definitely be different than what we see tomorrow. I do agree with Dan on the lineup for tomorrow. I think it's going to be a more experienced lineup, and Arteta will bring on the kids later, fresh legs, fresh passion, hopefully. wanting to get out there with the time that they're given and make a statement. But then I think on Saturday they're given the opportunity to get the start against a club that they're bottom half of the table, and then again with Southampton on the road as well. So Dan, I was just saying, I think the younger players are going to get the shout over the weekend, and against some of the lower table clubs. I agree with your lineup in terms of what you think is going to happen, not necessarily what you would do on tomorrow against City. But I think it'll be a more experienced lineup. And then come Saturday at Brighton, I think you'll see the kids get a chance to come on and really show what they can do.
Yeah, and Brighton's an interesting one because it's not a team we do so well against. We obviously spoke about last year's result where we threw it away really as a 1-1 draw, and Granit Xhaka, our favourite player, decided to give a penalty away. And I think that this season was an absolute disaster at home. I remember the last year on Boxing Day, we drew 1-1. Really poor result, and I think we've only beaten them once since they've actually been a Premier League side. So I think that it's frustrating when you come to the kind of bogey sides that we have, but I can't actually see us taking 3 points here, and that's the only reason why is because of the bad kind of omen that we've had. But I think you're right, Tanner. I think when it comes to the kids, I think that's what's needed now is we need to see what these youngsters can do, and I believe there'll be a little bit more of a squad rotation because there has to be the amount of games we're playing now, and that's where I want to see the kind of the Guendouzi's and the Willocks, and also I don't want to see fans get on their back if it doesn't go right for these lads because they're young, they're learning. There are some fans, unfortunately, that will happily get on, say, Rob Holding's back, but they don't want to say anything bad against somebody like Mustafi. So that's what we need to be changing, is to give these youngsters a chance and see what they can do. I think as far as Brighton are concerned, I actually like their manager. I think Graham Potter's done well with someone we know from Ostersund's when he coached them, when he had them in the Europa League. I think he's done a good job with the squad that he's got there. And I think it's a team that we have always seemed to struggle against. So, again, I don't think we're going to get 3 points, boys. It might be a bit pessimistic. I think we might nick a draw, and I don't think we'll get the 3 points. I don't know. Hope I'm wrong. I hope the kids prove us wrong. I hope we go there, the kids play, and then we absolutely destroy them. But I'm just not so confident from the last few visits we've been there. But let's hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. I guess we're pretty much up against it here. Let's just get into predictions here for Saturday then at Brighton. Dan, you think you'll nick a draw? You got a score line on you?
Yeah, I think it'll be one apiece. I don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I don't think that Brighton are a team that I think they know they have to organise themselves well defensively, so particularly against us. So, I'm going to go for 1-1. That sounds really pessimistic, doesn't it? But, I'll go for 1-1.
And again, we don't really know what we're going to get here.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're shooting in the dark here. We just have no idea. So it's you got to kind of base it off of past events. So Tony, what do you got on Saturday?
I'm going to be optimistic here and think either Martinelli or Saka, some of the young guns that get involved, and we'll win 3-1.
Stan?
Yeah, I'm confident as well about that one. I'm going to say that perhaps we can squeeze out a 2-1 win. Hopefully, like Tony says, we have some young ones that come into the side and they take their chance, which is what I want to see. I want to see them come into the side and not just disappear in the game and think that it's all too big for them. And I'd like to think that I'm trying to find a positive here. If an empty stadium could benefit anyone, maybe some of those younger players, it could be a benefit for them to just go out there and play their football and express themselves and not worry about, hearing the wrong kind of chant or boos if they misplace a pass.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it could be almost like a teaching tool for the younger players to, when you get back into the filled stadiums on the road and people are right there on top of you, booing you, playing without the noise, you can almost turn your brain into that. And like I said before, everything will just kind of fade away and you just focus on what's kind of right in front of you. So I think playing with the empty stadium and no noise could be a teaching tool for some of the younger players. Stan, I'm with you. I think we're going to figure out a way to, with the young kids, I think they're going to come in hungry. They're going to get a start. And I think we're going to beat them 2-1. I agree, Dan, with the Brighton will be organized. They're going to be organized. And I would actually, I was leaning more towards Tony's prediction of 3-1, but I think Brighton will be organized enough that they'll kind of keep us at bay. But I do think we'll get 2 in there, and hopefully we can be organized ourselves at the back and only give up 1 or hopefully none. So my prediction for Saturday would be 2-1. So in the first 2 games, we get 3 points and 2 road games. And I don't think anybody, that's my guess. I don't think I wouldn't be disappointed with that if that's the way that things went. So I think overall in these last 10 games, I think I called for 19 points, I believe. That might be a little pie in the sky to some, but I have no reason to be pessimistic right now. I'm going to try to be as optimistic as I can and look at these last 10 games and hope that we get some results and can climb the table and get back into European competition. Dan, I want to get your opinion on something real quick. Tony and Stan, we've talked about this before. Dan, what's your take on European competition for us going forward for next year? Because some people have said, look what it did for Liverpool and Leicester. They had no European competition. They went on, and were able to win the league or do very well in the league, get themselves back up to the top of the table. I say for this club, we need it just from the money standpoint. I think we need it for transfers. I think a year out of European football would really hurt the financial side of Arsenal Football Club.
Potentially financially, I'll come to that in a minute. I feel that we deserve to be out of Europe this season. I feel it's what we need as a club to start again. And people say we are going to be financially screwed if that happens. Well, what does that mean? That means we might have to sell some players. So if we have to sell some players, I am more than happy with that. That means we lose Aubameyang. It will mean we lose Aubameyang. He's probably going to go anyway. So even if we got into Europe. So I believe personally it's be good to start again. I look at Chelsea under Conte. They won the league. They had no European football. I look at Leicester this season. They're 3rd and they're probably going to finish 3rd. They deserve to be there. They've played 1 game a week. Liverpool, if it wasn't for a Gerrard slip, would have won the league. They had 1 game a week. And I think that's what we need. This squad is not good enough to get into the Champions League. And this squad, in my opinion, is clearly proven it's not good enough to win the Europa League. So what's the point of us being in those competitions if we're not going to try and win them? I don't want to be put in the Champions League with this squad and be knocked out the group stages come February. It's going to be a pointless competition. We may as well have just not been in it. And I don't believe that if you look at the 3 teams that we've lost to in the Europa League finals and semi-finals the last 3 years, Olympiacos, Atletico Madrid and Chelsea, how many of those get to Champions League finals? Chelsea won it in 2012, quite fortunately, and Atletico Madrid got to a final once in 13, 14. That's it. If we can't beat them, what are we going to do in the Champions League? So we need to make sure that our squad is good enough to compete for that Champions League, which could take 2 or 3 seasons. And once we do that, that's great. Now, if we're not in Europe, we might not be able to get an Upamecano and a Thomas Partey. But what we might be able to do is go into the young Brazil and French leagues and look at the next N'Golo Kante, the next Virgil van Dijk. That's what our recruitment should be looking at, the Edus and Artetas of this world. And then that's down to Raul and Husfami to say, do you know what? We're not in Europe at the moment, but come a few years when you're here and you're in the team and you're in our centre of midfield and our centre half, you'll be in a Champions League final when competing with Liverpool and City at the top. And that's what their job is. So if that means we have to start again by playing 1 game a week, I believe that is where we're at the moment. If we're going back into the Europa League, we're going to be in a situation where the players are going to be happy to be on their wages. If it means that we're out of Europe and Mesut Ozil goes, I can't not play European football, I'm out of here. Is any of us going to cry? No, we're not. We're going to go on, fella, take it easy with Xhaka and with Mustafi and take Kolasinac with you because he's your best mate. So all of these people that are going to be leaving our club, I'm going to be happy with it. So for me, I think it's what we may need. I personally think it will happen. I think my prediction was 8th for this season. I feel we will come 8th. I don't think we've got enough to beat to get into the top 4. I mean, if we won in the top 4, we've got to win every single game. So if we lose tomorrow night, that's done, top 4. So I think that fifth will be between Chelsea and Man United. I think Man United might just sneak fourth. I think Chelsea will get fifth. And my prediction was Spurs to get sixth. Now they've got Blimmin, Kane and Son back. I think Wolves and Sheffield United will fight out for seventh with us. And I think that we'll just lose out to Wolves because I think they're a well-organised side more than we are. And I think we'll get eighth. And that's just my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get fourth and we win the FA Cup. Of course I do. But I just have to be realistic about this team. I've seen this team too many times let us down. And I've gone for eighth and out of Europe.
Yeah, the point you made about being out of Europe and then maybe forcing us to sell some players, that's a great point. I never thought about it from that standpoint that, okay, well, you know what, we're not getting that money. So now you can't really say, oh, you don't want to give me 30 pounds or 30 million pounds for Mustafi. Well, you can take your 22 million pounds and shove it up your ass. I don't want it. I want my 30. That's another conversation for another day. So, boys, I think we're going to – anybody, final thoughts? Tony, we'll go up to you. Final thought?
Just what Stephen was saying in the comments about us having 200 to 300 million in the bank.
Oh, yeah.
With players with buyout clauses like Party and Upamecano of 42 and 55 million or whatever. Why don't you just go out and pay it and be done with it? There's no reason to flirt around with it. Just go out and pay the money you want the player.
Yeah. Stan?
I just want to piggyback off what Dan was saying about us being in Europe, and he makes some very good points and ones that I understand for the argument of why we shouldn't be in Europe. But I'm of a slightly different opinion. That I think that us trying to find a way back into the Champions League is vital, and it's purely because of the model of the way that the business is being run. Those seasons that Chelsea and Liverpool were out of Europe and they won the league, they were blips for those clubs. It wasn't usual for them to be, not playing at not sat at the big table, And they also have better squads, which meant that if they didn't have those extra games, that they had an opportunity to win the league. Whether we're in Europe or not, I don't think it would really help us to get that much further up the table. But I do like still being in the Europa League, if it just for the fact that it means more football games, and for me, more football games means more youngsters. We get a chance to look at more players. I'm all for keeping some of our players in-house and using them in the League Cup more and in the Europa League more, rather than just farming them out on loan, not really keeping that much of an eye on them, bringing them back, using them in the pre-season again, using them in the first couple of rounds of the League Cup, farming them back out on loan. I want to see the players stay with us, and I want to be able to see them playing in the Europa League and playing in the League Cup, so we can make a decision. We shouldn't be afraid to say, this player isn't good enough, we should move him on. We shouldn't just hide behind the fact if a player isn't good enough and just keep him for the sake of it. Also, it worries me that if we're not going to find a way to get back at the top table, I worry that it's just going to make our situation even worse, because I think that we are a club that we should be bringing in youngsters, that we should still be able to get 1, 2, or maybe 3 experienced players that will cost good money to come into this team, because we're a team that needs that. We need to have marquee players in the team, especially at this point of where we are. We can't just leave it all onto the kids' shoulders. So my reasons are a little bit different. It's more because I worry about the model that we have, and I worry that if we're just not into Europe, we'll miss out on better players, which means that we'll stay a team that flounders in and around 9th place. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah. Dan, go ahead. Final thought?
Yeah, I mean, what I try and do is I don't want to come across pessimistic, but I'm kind of realistic with this team now. If I was to see these youngsters being given a chance, I'd be a hell of a lot more optimistic and sort of say, do you know what, let's start again. I think my reason that I believe we're going to finish outside of Europe is I look at our remaining fixtures, and it worries me, if I'm honest with you. It does worry me, because I think that as much as it is a football lottery and form goes out the window, I've seen this team against these sides, and it doesn't sound pretty. We've got to go to Liverpool. We've got Tottenham. We've got Leicester, Wolves, obviously City. I actually think, you know what, I'm going to say it now. I think Norwich and Watford, I think we'll beat them both. I don't think we're going to beat Villa, Southampton, Brighton, or Leicester. I think they're going to be draws. And I think we're going to lose to Wolves, because we never seem to be able to pick 3 points up there. And I think we're going to lose to Man City and I think we're going to lose to Liverpool. Spurs, I don't want to talk about. But what I've just said there is, for me, not good enough to get into Europe. So I hope I'm completely wrong and we put a run of games together. Of course I do. You know, I'm not one of these fans who wants Arsenal to lose. Of course I'm not. But I've tried to look at things realistically. And at the moment, I just don't see that this team is good enough to get into Europe. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that. My final thought, and it'll be the European competition thing. And I'm with Stan. I'm greedy. I look forward, as bad as what we are, as bad as what we've been. I seem to look forward to the matches no matter what. And I'm always kind of that optimist that is today the day we turn it around. Is today the day everything clicks. You know, we bag 4, keep a clean sheet, and we can just carry that form into the next game, and it just starts to snowball for us in a good way. But all points are very well taken on, maybe it is time to just wipe the slate clean, no European football, focus on one thing, focus on everything domestically, and that's it. So I am not optimistic on European football this year. I don't think even 19 points gets it. I think it's just there's too much in front of us that we would have to leapfrog to get into European football. And unless, one of those 5 teams just completely shits the bed, I just don't see it happening, even if we did get 19 points. And I think 19 points is pretty – that's a pretty tall task for this club, given the opponents that we have to play coming up. So, gentlemen.
Can I just say as well, I don't think the club even believes that our team's good enough to get into Europe at the moment, which is the reason why they've given a 12.5% pay cut. They basically told the players, you're not good enough to get in Europe, so we're not paying you those wages.
If you can somehow get in the Champions League, you'll get all your money. But
so here's the deal, right? If the club don't believe that the players are good enough, then what are they going to do about it? Because they're telling us that we need to be there. That tells me then that there has to be some kind of investment, because what we've got isn't good enough to get us there, right? So, when Hertha Berlin rang up and said we'd give you 40 million euros for Xhaka, I would have just said, can I put you in hold for a moment? I would have got the other telephone, rung up Atletico Madrid and said to them, look, we're scraping the money together for Thomas Partey's buyout clause. Can we talk and do business? Yeah, okay, we'll take the 40 million. Right, let's talk business. And you work out some kind of a plan. I know it's not Football Manager, but the guy's got a buyout clause. It's there for a reason. It means that he can be bought out.
Exactly. Yep. All right, fellas. Thank you guys very much for coming on and joining me on the kind of the first episode back here. It's been a while for me, so I want to thank you guys for coming on. Tony is at TauProfit420 on Twitter. Stan is at Stan_the_man. What is the last part of it?
68.
68. Thank God it's 68. Otherwise, we'd all be making fun of you if it were one number more. And it's at Dan Arsenal, and I know there are some numbers at the end of yours.
87.
At Dan Arsenal 87, and I am at Bearded Gooner. I think you guys all know that. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for watching us live and everybody who watches on the replay. Thank you guys all very much. Steven, thanks for all of the comments. I'm sorry I didn't get more of them on the screen. I promise I will do better on that next time. So until next week, we've got 2 games, and come on, you Gunners.